Welcome to the Talking Book Voices, the podcast, where we explore the wonders of the Texas Talking Book program. Join us in making literature accessible to all. This program, a division of the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, provides a free library service to Texans of all ages with a qualifying visual, physical, or reading disability. In each episode, we'll uncover its history, share stories, get updates, and tips to maximize this invaluable program. So whether you love reading, seeking accessible materials, or just curious about the program, this podcast is for you. Visit www.texastalkingbooks.org for more info. So let's begin the Talking Book Voices, a podcast by the Texas State Library and Archives Commission.
Hi, podcast listeners. My name is Laura Jean, and I've been a Reader's Advisory Librarian here at the Talking Book program for 9 years now. And before that, I worked as a library assistant at various different academic and public libraries for 12 years.
And my name is John, and I've been a Reader's Advisory Librarian at the Texas Talking Book program since 2014. I was also a Reader's Advisory Librarian at the Arizona Talking Book Library from 2007 to 2014. And before that, I was a Youth Services Librarian in Houston, Texas, Tempe, Arizona, and Glendale, Arizona. And Laura Jean, what exactly is Reader's Advisory?
Well, one of our major responsibilities as Reader's Advisory Librarians is to know about the different types of books that are available to our patrons. And one way to categorize books is by genre.
What is a genre and what is genre fiction?
Okay, librarians are the worst at using jargon. So, what exactly is genre fiction? So, Merriam-Webster describes genre as a category of artistic, musical, or literary composition characterized by a particular style, form, or content. But for our purposes, a genre is a group of books that have a similar subject matter, like westerns or mysteries. And any librarian working in Texas had best know their westerns.
Okay, well, what are westerns? I mean, they're just historical fiction with cowboys that are set in the western U.S., right?
Well, technically that's correct, but honestly, they can be so much more. Here are some of the general qualities of Western fiction. The setting has vividly described landscapes and a sense of timelessness. The main character is generally a loner with a simple story arc. The plots can be simple or complex depending on the author. Some can be formulaic, which, for some patrons is part of the enjoyment factor, and some can be quite intricately plotted. A nostalgic tone for romance of eras past. The pacing can be action-packed, but sometimes it can be a bit slow due to the lyrical landscape descriptions. And the character dialogue is generally sparse but colorful and full of jargon. Often there are poetic descriptions of landscape.
Well, I've heard that westerns are dead. They're old hat, as it were. Is that true?
Just like Mark Twain, the reports of the death of the Western have been greatly exaggerated. They're not dead, they're just evolving. For example, some of the current trends are more points of view are being looked at. So you've got African American characters and Asian American and women and LGBTQIA. You've also got the women have more agency now in the Westerns. You've got women as doctors and outlaws and not just the saloon girl with the heart of gold. And another thing is there's been mixing of Westerns with other genres. So you'll have Western romance or contemporary Western mysteries like the Walt Longmire book series or the Yellowstone TV show.
Well, true confession, westerns just aren't my thing. My dad was a Louis L'Amour fan. In fact, when he passed away, I inherited my dad's collection of Louis L'Amour paperbacks, and I would have much rather inherited $1 million, but my dad was a minister. He didn't have $1 million. he had Louis L'Amour paperbacks, and I've had a grudge against Westerns and specifically Louis L'Amour ever since.
Well, you're not alone. I used to think that way too, until I realized that some of the things that I like about my favorite genres are also present in Westerns. So you might find this to be the case also. For example, location genres. So I like historical fiction and science fiction. Both are all about the environment in which they're set, whether it's the early 17th century Japan in Shogun or alien planets like in John Scalzi's Old Man's War series. These genres are referred to as location genres because they all incorporate a strong sense of place. Westerns also feature a vividly described landscape that almost reaches the level of an additional character.
Well, I kind of think the lengthy descriptions of the environment and landscapes and stuff like that, that's just kind of slow and pokey. I prefer, well, more fast-paced books with more action that move along.
Oh, okay, so you're more into action genres like thrillers and suspense, adventure. Well, Westerns can also be fast paced and plot driven and full of action too. You'll just be more interested in Western fiction written by authors like William W. Johnstone and Peter Brandvolt or John Sharp.
Well, okay, fine. I guess I could maybe try some westerns, maybe. Now how do I choose one to try?
Well, the best way to determine if you like westerns is to pick something short, like a collection of short stories. That way, the time you invest in it is low. So if you don't wind up liking them, 2 hours of your time isn't that kind of a commitment that an entire book would exact. And you can also try a genre blend anthology.
Wait a minute. Uh, genre wattage?
There I go with the jargon again. Okay, so a genre blend is when you combine two popular broad genres together. Like if you have a romance, it takes place in the Wild West, or if you like the TV show Firefly, or the movie Serenity. So that was a blend of Western and science fiction. And if you already like speculative fiction, like fantasy or horror, adding a Western flavor is a little bit less of a stretch. So you might try something like Dead Man's Hand, which is an anthology of the Weird West, edited by John Joseph Adams. And another way to try out Westerns is to watch Western films or TV shows. Again, you're investing less time than you would in reading a book. Or if you already love a particular Western movie or show, we do have many books in our collection you might like to try. Best of the West, stories that inspired classic Western film series. And this is a 3-book series of Western stories that were made into movies like The Cisco Kid and High Noon, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and 3:10 to Yuma, for example. In fact, we have a couple Western genre and genre blend bibliographies full of recommendations for anyone who's interested.
Oh, well, Laura Jean, given us some good ideas for sampling westerns. Or maybe she had you from the word western. Perhaps you're already a western fan. So here's a question for you. What is it about westerns you like? Thinking about what specifically you enjoy about a book or a genre helps us make the best recommendations for you. And it also helps if you think outside the box to find books in similar genres or similar authors you might enjoy. Well, that's just about all the time we have. I hope you've take the opportunity to ask us for tips on what to read next. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on TBP Voices.